Hello friends, recently Reserve Bank of India has released a framework for accepting green deposits for the regulated entities. Henceforth, banks and other regulated entities will be able to mobilize green deposits for the purpose of lending for green projects, that is for biodiversity and for environmental friendly projects. It is a very big initiative for the purpose of mitigating climate risk, which has been causing intense concern to the stakeholders. Henceforth, the regulated entities can create a pool of resources by designing their own range of products under green deposit mobilization, and the regulated entities will be able to create attractive deposit products for the purpose of mobilizing deposits. So they will have to design a particular policy for the purpose of mobilizing deposits on one hand, and then they will have to design a separate policy as financing framework. That is, on one side mobilizing deposits, how they will be mobilizing deposits, what will be the product range, what will be the customer protection, and on the other side, how these resources will be utilized for the purpose of lending the environmental friendly projects, that is for alternate sources of energy, for mitigation of greenhouse gases emissions, carbon emissions, pollution control and biodiversity. These are all the projects for which they will be lending from out of the green deposits. Now they will have to make two policies separately, one for mobilizing deposits under the green deposits and second for financing framework. Now the end use of funds have to be verified by an independent agency, and they will have to certify that the funds which have been mobilized as green deposits are actually utilized for the purpose of lending to the environmental projects, and that certification will give some kind of assurance to the depositors that their funds are correctly utilized for the purpose for which they have been mobilized. So these three things will be the tools through which this financing, mobilizing deposits and lending for green projects will be undertaken. One is the policy for mobilizing green deposits, second financing framework, and third how they will be certified by an independent agency which will certify the end use of funds. Now the depositors will have two satisfactions. One is they will be getting some interest on the deposits naturally, because otherwise deposits won't come. Second, they will also be participating in the larger interest of the nation, that they will be contributing to the green initiatives and for mitigating pollution, for biodiversity, and for promoting afforestation, and for green initiatives and alternate sources of energy, and all projects which are sustainable finance, which comes under sustainable finance. Now the banks will have two challenges. One is how to attract deposits. Now the deposits cannot be attracted only on the basis of costing, that is by offering higher interest rates, because when these deposits are invested for lending purpose, then the yield on those lendings, that means this green deposits portfolio has to be sustainable in the long run. That means the costing of deposits, that is the cost of resources, transaction cost, and the yield on advances, that is the advances which the banks will be making for green projects, all these things will have to work out and remain sustainable. That means it should be profitable. Now, when you go to the traditional lending, the duration of the projects are relatively smaller. But when sustainable finance, if you want to lend to environmental friendly projects, the period will be longer, and there will be risks of cost overruns and time overruns. So the banks will have to balance the yield on investments, that is yield on loans, and cost of deposits, transaction cost, and risk of lending to these projects, because these projects may relatively carry a higher load of credit risk when compared to traditional lending, because the skill sets and competencies of the people are more in traditional lending when compared to the lending to the sustainable finance projects, that is green projects. The competency is yet to be developed. So the banks will have to galvanize mobilization of green deposits, working out projects for which the lending will have to be done, that is the purpose for which deposits have been mobilized, and the certification has to be got done about the end use of funds. Then they will have to balance between the cost of deposits and yield on advances to ensure that these green finance remains a sustainable value proposition and sustainable line of business for the banks. So let's see how the banks are going to meet this challenge of mobilizing deposits for the purpose of lending to the green projects. And in order to avoid greenwashing, that is the term being used, greenwashing, that is without actually lending for green projects, some entities may show as if they are lending to this. That is why the systemic control has been put by Reserve Bank of India that these projects will have to be certified by an independent agency that the end use of funds are duly applied for the purpose for which they are mobilized. So there are a lot of opportunities as well as challenges for the banks and the regulated entities to mobilize the deposits and apply these deposits for the purpose for which the lending is to be done. But this pointer, that is the framework of accepting green deposits, is a very positive initiative for the purpose of mitigating climate risk, at least not in the near term, but at least in the medium and long term. So let's see how the regulated entities participate in this exercise and make full use of the opportunity which is created by Reserve Bank of India, and more and more green projects should come and they should be able to mitigate the climate risks in the long run. So we will be discussing on these kind of developments as we go forward. And thank you very much for being with me. And if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do subscribe, share, and put your comments on the comment box so that we can keep discussing these developments as we go forward. Thank you so much.